FAU, the Florida Atlantic Owls, taking on the San Diego State, the Whales. No, I'm sorry, the San Diego State Aztecs is what we got here. Opens up as a small favorite here. San Diego State, I believe, -2. The total, shocker, pretty low there for this one. 131 and a half here. Reliance Stadium in Houston is going to be center stage here. And for those, keep in mind, this is now, I believe, the fourth Final Four that is set in the city of Houston. I think our man behind the scenes, Robert, can attest to that. UCLA, UConn, and Nova have all won championships here at Reliance Stadium in the past. So they are going to be hopping, ready to go. And Florida Atlantic and San Diego State, they will be first up in the Final Four. So I'm not going to ask you guys, obviously, to lock in anything here. There's still plenty of time to be able to look at some of the numbers. But your initial thoughts here, Drew Martin, on this interesting matchup between Florida Atlantic and San Diego State. I'm refuse to call a team that is 35-3 a Cinderella. There is no Cinderella in 35 wins here, Drew. So what are you thinking of this matchup initially here?
I agree with you, Joe. I mean, it's not a true Cinderella. It really isn't. I mean, 3 losses on the season. They're flirting with 70% against the spread. And they're coming from Conference USA. Conference USA is 15-1 now in the postseason, with Charlotte winning the CBI. There's only 3 postseason tournaments here, guys. The 49ers won that one. And half of the NIT Final Four in Las Vegas starting tomorrow is Conference USA teams with North Texas and UAB. So Cinderella, I think, is kind of the wrong marketing towards this team, which obviously they'll get, Joe, as a 9 seed. I look at this FAU team, Joe, and they are just a very difficult matchup. They got 4 guys that can all handle the ball and shoot. And that center from Russia down low, the big boy 7-footer, he is a very skilled big man. He knows his role. He's good on the defensive end, and he's quick with the ball right up to the rim. He's a big part of their success as well. Now they're going up against San Diego State here, Joe. And San Diego State guards the 3-point line very well. Very good defensive team overall. So it's pretty much what's got them here. And 3-point defense, we kind of talked about it. That you touched on it with Creighton and their mishaps from behind the arc. FAU likes to shoot the 3 as well, and they're very good at it. But San Diego State, with that 3-point defense, there's something to that, guys. That's what's kind of on the Aztec side here. Plus, it's in Houston, like you talked about, Joe, and it's in the Texans arena there. At NRG, I believe it's called. So keep in mind, guys, it's a football stadium. You get that extra distance in between the basket and kind of the stands in the background. Sometimes that can hurt 3-point shooting. So keep that in mind as well. But overall, from a matchup standpoint, Joe, I'm not looking to go against this FAU team. I'm really not. I think they can win the national championship. They would have a tough time against UConn or Miami if they do make it that far. They're going to have a tough time against San Diego State as well. San Diego State playing that defensive basketball, getting to this point. The reason I lean towards the Owls at the open, though, Joe, sidewise, is because FAU has proven they can beat up and down teams, going fast pace. And they've proven a team like Tennessee that plays a similar style, they can win a low-scoring game as well. So I think that kind of bodes well for the Owls here. And overall, it does need to be noted, guys, from a total standpoint, San Diego State is 12 straight games to the under. Watch out. We've seen a full-point move here towards the under. It's in the football stadium, Final Four, the lights on, nerves might be, happening in the beginning. It makes me actually lean towards the under as well, Joe. I don't like to step in front of those trends, say, oh, this is the time they're going to go over. No, 12 straight games to the under. They play slow defensive basketball. I'd actually look under at the open, Joe.
So it's so funny too. One of the things that I read, and I couldn't believe it, but it makes total sense here, that non-power conference teams, right, Drew, like the Conference USA, the FAUs, the San Diego States, some of these non-traditional powers, we've only had, Merril, one national champion to come from one of these conferences here. Any idea who that? I know Finn knows, but where do you
I
think
would
is?
get. Well, I was going to say, does Memphis qualify? Because they're in Conference USA. That's why I thought Memphis, but I don't think they qualify.
It's UNLV was the last
Oh, there we
team
go.
non-power conference to actually win a so this is kind of uncharted territory here, and yet here they are, FAU, San Diego State. One of them's going to have an opportunity here to play for a national championship. It's kind of crazy. You were on San Diego State. I think you've actually cashed a few tickets with them now here over the last couple of games. So what was your initial thought when you realized it's FAU?
Well, I didn't love this matchup because I've been on both these teams quite often. In fact, I've had FAU, I believe, every tournament game so far. So I've gone 3-1 against the spread. The only time they didn't cover in their 4 wins was, of course, against the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. So these have been 2 really good moneymakers for my clients, Joe, during the tournament. We've cashed with them in almost every single round. I actually played against San Diego State in the first round. That we had a best bet on Charleston, who led a lot of that game, So it's kind of crazy. San Diego State was very fortunate to even get by the first round against a good mid-major team in Charleston. We're going to talk about the Miami game in a moment. I actually faded Miami with Drake in the first round, and Drake led like probably 90% of that game outright and then played not to lose late. So it just shows how much random variance there is in one-and-done scenarios. These teams were all very fortunate to be here. I had Florida Atlantic against Memphis. They win that game by a point late. So 3 of these 4 Final Four teams probably should have been out in the first round. If they were to play 10 times, they probably would have lost 5 or 6 out of those 10 games in the first round, and now they're in the Final Four. So it's crazy. It is madness. If you look at the makeups of all these teams, I mean, Connecticut obviously is the blue blood remaining. They've won national titles. They kind of fit that mold. But I thought Drew brought up an excellent point, and I was going to mention it as well. At Conference USA, we got to talk conferences because, I know Creighton got bumped yesterday, but UConn Big East, Creighton Big East, Xavier was in the Elite Eight, Marquette was a 2 seed. Big East was a really good conference, and Conference USA was obviously a lot stronger than people realized this season as well. And as I mentioned earlier, Memphis should have probably beaten San Diego State as a Conference USA team in the first round. Drew mentioned Charlotte winning the CBI, which I'd forgotten about, and I was going to point out that 2 of the 4 teams remaining tomorrow in the NIT finals are Conference USA teams as well. And by the way, Florida Atlantic is moving to the American with Memphis. I misspoke there. Memphis used to be Conference USA, but they'll be in Memphis's conference next season. They played them, of course, in the first round, and we're lucky to beat them. The point is, I think these games are wide open. I do think pace favors San Diego State again in this game, and I would agree with the under for several reasons, like Drew said. First of all, the big arena. I know these teams playing it more often. It's maybe been less of a factor in recent decades, but still huge football stadium, and it's the first game. Maybe they'll shoot better on Monday, but I think the Saturday game is going to be difficult, and these are 2 really good 3-point defenses. Both are holding their opponents below 30% on the road this season. FAU does rely a little bit more on the 3, which could bring some random variance into this game. However, you look at the offensive ratings, they're top 30 both offense and defense. San Diego State 4th in defense, but 75th in offense. They're by far the weakest, most inconsistent offensive team remaining. And historically speaking, you've got to be top 25 offensively to win the national title. And San Diego State's the only team remaining that's not. I think if it's a low-scoring under game, which I think it will be, that probably favors the Aztecs.
It's such a unique matchup here, Tony Finn. I know you knew the UNLV answer because you were there. But and it's hard to believe that that's the only one that we've ever had. So that's not one of the blue bloods or blue blood conferences. But boy, oh boy, San Diego State, they defend like their lives depend on it. They've got absolutely no problem. They are deep. They've got a lot of depth. They've got length. They got some athleticism. They just can't hit water if they fell out of a boat offensively at points. So I don't know. Do you favor defense or do you favor offense at this point in the tournament?
Well, it's funny. I was very successful with San Diego State. I had them, I think, on the show last week. Maybe I even called them an outright winner in their game against Bama, and I did sprinkle a little money on the money line there. But I thought that was just a horrible matchup for Alabama, and it's because of the turnovers. If you watch San Diego State play, if you watch them play defense, they're just so technically sound. They're long. They're exhausting. Imagine you guys everybody here has played basketball at some point in their lives to some degree. And the worst thing that can go on for 40 minutes is when you can't even take 1 second of a breather or relax for 1 minute or casually do anything, because you do anything casually offensively against this Aztecs team, you're going to pay. And Alabama struggled against turnover. When they lost this year, they lost because they had too many turnovers.
Hmm.
It wasn't ridiculous. It's how it happened. If you look at FAU, you look at how they've won. I've never given depth. I've never given it so much weight in a tournament compared to regular season, guys, because of the differences in timeouts, the number, the length, halftime even. It's bigger. Depth has never been. I mean, some of these teams, the national championship teams, play 6, 7 guys. That's it when they get to the tournament. 7 guys. FAU has outscored their opponents in the final 10 minutes of games this year, 98-66. That's ridiculous, too, for a team that depends on threes. I give San Diego State an edge here, not only because at this point in time, what we've seen is this. We've seen defense rule. Really, I mean, even UConn is a better defensive team metrically than Gonzaga, although I think Gonzaga was undervalued. And don't get me wrong, the difference in that game, the margin of victory got to the point where it's one of those dominoes, or the snowball effect, where you get down and then you start doing things that are outside your character as a team, and they don't go right, and the whole thing collapses on you. So that said, in this first matchup, FAU versus San Diego State, coaching, not that I don't think FAU is well coached, but if you look at how this team's coached, how every player fulfilled, they know their responsibilities. There's no star. There's no dancing after a shot. There's no They just do their job. This is a really, really, really good game. One I like much better than the UConn-Miami game, only because I fear for Miami. I really fear for Miami defensively. They were fortunate with where they got, where they're at. I thought they were fortunate to be Texas. Yada, 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 Joe. I really like San Diego State. And if it gets to the point where we have San Diego State and UConn in the finals, which that would be today, this minute would be my projection, then it should be fun, shouldn't it?
Well, I think it's going to be fun either way at this point. I don't think fans can lose one way or the other here. It's always good. I mean, it's so nice to see. And I think from this point on, Drew, this is college basketball ain't never going to be the same again. I think March Madnesses are going to be even more madness now.